Okay, the
Another-
grumpy twins are back.
Another grumpy day.
Another grumpy day. Every day's a grumpy day, but
That-
today's a little grumpier than normal. So we thought we would show you something really new and really cool that Mark has been working on. And so,
Got to share screen.
got to share screen.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, is there anything else I need to do to introduce this? No, because
No.
you know who we
No,
are.
I just wandered in from the farm and 6 inches of rain last night. So
Oh God, yeah.
come into Bob's shop and let's stay dry.
All right. Well, I'm going to share screen then so you can talk about it. And I'll leave these on the side. There we go.
So we used to talk about the brain gauge. Well, we hadn't had a grumpy science in a while, but we're going to talk about the brain gauge. And most of you that have heard about the brain gauge, yeah, it's that standard test. Well, the standard test is still there, and it still takes 15 to 20 minutes to take, and it still gives you lots and lots of specifics about brain function, and it's pretty accurate on a lot of things. And it's more accurate than pretty much any measure out there. But one thing that we're doing now, which is, by the way, it's first to market. There is nothing else like this out there. We have the brain gauge quick check. That is 90 seconds of testing. And, everybody said, oh, I don't have 15 minutes to test my patients, even though they're sitting in the waiting room for an hour. Or they just say, I don't have 90 seconds to test today to see if I'm losing my mind and getting old and losing my mind. So we developed a 90-second test. And guess what? It's really accurate and really objective, and it works pretty good. And the other thing we have here is brain training. And a lot of people aren't really, we talked about that before, but brain training is a way for your brain to get fit and to start doing well. Now I'm going to take a look at the next slide, and
Well, actually, I wanted to make a quick
I'll
comment.
let you make
I wanted to
comments.
make a quick comment because Mark did all this without a whole lot of input from me, which is probably why it works so well. And the brain training came out first, which is really awesome. So it uses the basic, the basic resources of the brain gauge, but it gives you the opportunity to use it as an exercise tool. So this is essentially turning the brain gauge into an exercise tool, not just an assessment tool. So now it's like, exercise training for your brain. And then, of course, you want the fastest way to check, just like checking your blood pressure or anything you want to know in a minute or so. Are you okay? Or do you need to do a deeper dive on your test? And so I think now, Mark, I think that you have the trifecta, right? You got the best brain testing equipment really anywhere, and that's been proven multiple times. You're a little too conservative about it, in my opinion. You could take on anybody's technology and
we
demonstrate.
have, and we
And
actually
you have
beat
many
people
times.
in other head-to-head competitions.
It's not
so to
kind
speak.
of the best thing out there. It's by far quantitatively, measurably the best way to measure cognitive function. And then you've added a exercise tool so that people can use it for short periods or longer periods every day or once a week or however they want to. They can focus in on different areas for improvement. And then the trifecta is complete now. Excuse me. You have the quick check. And people can do a quick check, see where they're at. So this is awesome. This is really awesome. So next slide.
Yeah,
You
let's
ready?
do the next slide. And so this is basically the way you integrate with your life or your practice. I mean, depending on if you're a clinician, you can use this on your patients. If you're just wondering if you're losing your mind and you want to figure out a way to get it better, are the supplements you're taking that you take every day that people have claimed are going to make you smarter, are they actually working? And so what we always talk about is we say use the brain gauge standard initially. Yeah, you can take 15 minutes out of your life to take a full battery and get a full library of what's going on, because then you'll use that as a little bit of guidance for what exercises do you need to focus on in the brain training. And that's all laid out. It's longer videos and longer exercise instructions, but it's really pretty simple. It doesn't take long. The training platform doesn't take long, but use the 90-second quick check each session just to see what the long-term trends and improvement are. And, this can be whether you're getting a treatment, it can be whether you're using brain training to complement that treatment. It can be if you're just taking drugs and want to say, hey, THC doesn't bother me, man. Guess what?
Yeah.
I smoke all day long every day. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then, you know, what you see over on the right is the standard, you know, the two standard measures that are up there. You see one is all green. That's good. You want green. And one is not all green. That's not as good.
So he's talking about here on the right, these green bars circling it. All green is good, but versus the initial testing,
Initial testing on this person,
this
what's so good?
person wasn't so good. Couple of red bars, some orange bars, not so good. You want long green bars, right? And so it's visually very clear that there's an improvement here.
Yeah, and then people always ask, well, what can you use it for? This is just for X, Y, or Z. Actually, any neurological insult, any neurological disorder we've got experience with. And let's go to the next slide.
All righty.
Like the next slide here, you know, what do people use it for? Well, number one, people use it for tracking brain fitness, like we were just talking about. Are you know, early detection of aging effects? You know, anybody that's in their late 70s or, you know, losing their mind, maybe, and they talk incoherently, but they say, oh, my mind's fine. Test them or have them test. Or, you know, if you're need to be tested every day, you know, that gives you, and there's something to do about that. That would be brain training. And brain training does this thing where it strengthens connectivity. And that's what you think about. It's, you know, whether there's anything wrong with your brain or you just want to keep it healthy, you need to exercise it. So, and also, you know, at the high, there's different ranges of people that use brain training. Some people do brain training just because they're in that aging category, like me. I'm 66 and I want to keep my brain going at some level. And other people are trying to enhance athletic performance. They want to get faster. They want to make quicker decisions. They want to move quicker. And, you know, then we have up here that improves cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve is that thing where, you know, there's a parallel in brain training and brain function with physical function and physical training. So take a 80-pound person and you think you're worried about them falling off the curb and breaking a hip. You know, and the way you fix that is you improve their physical reserve. You put on 20 pounds of muscle, you have them work out, you have them eat, and all of a sudden you don't worry about them falling down and breaking a hip. Brain training is the same thing. You have less chance of getting injury when you improve cognitive reserve. So anyway.
Excellent. So you've used this. I mean, the discussion could go on forever, Mark, because you know, I know a lot of the different people you've tested, but just really quickly as examples of things where you have a lot of experience. And do you mind talking about those neurotrauma and
things like neurotrauma? People are most familiar with concussion. And I just don't want people to walk away and say, oh, this is a concussion tool. No, it's not a concussion tool. Actually, we outperform other concussion tools because we are a brain health or a brain fitness tool.
Overall thing, not looking for one specific
we're not
thing,
looking at
concussion, you're looking at overall brain health.
And so you can do symptomology for everything: neurotrauma, neurodegenerative disorders, developmental disorders. But we have experience in all of those things like aging dementias, autism, pain, pharmacological insult. I mentioned, you know, all our students used to get brain gauges, all our undergraduate students used to get brain gauges. And so we have a little bit of experience with recreational drugs.
Students are the best, really.
I mean, even if you think you've got mold, one guy was testing himself every day and he said, hey, my scores went down. Well, that's because his house got flooded and then he got black mold and his scores went down. And he's like, so this mold has an effect? I was, yep. And sure enough, he's trying to clean out his house and he's trying to recover from this mold thing.
Oh man. And that's such a big deal. Yeah.
Stress and anxiety, it's also sensitive to that. It's, but you know, that's something that doctors like to use it for.
I don't have any stress. Do you have stress?
I'm anxious.
I don't have anxiety either.
No anxiety.
I don't know anybody who does.
And these graphs on the right, those are just examples of what kinds of tracking you might see. like somebody recovering from concussion, and that's not with any kind of treatment.
Yeah, looking at time here, right? So August, September, and just August through pretty much the month of September, look at this person's improvement. And it's very visual. You can see the person recovering, and you can see it like, as frequently as you want, as, each day is like a dot. So you can track your recovery really well. I think this got to be one of the greatest strengths of this. You can do this over days or weeks or months or years,
Yeah.
tracking your recovery and your general health. I don't want to steal your thunder, but I think it's awesome if you look at the bottom graph, right?
Yeah.
Where the red arrow says there's an impact, there's a brain insult there, right? It's something happened there. So this person tracking, going along, they're fine, and all of a sudden, boom, knocked them down somewhat, and then they can track their recovery.
Right.
That's amazing. And then if you look at the middle graph, right, you've got some sort of where they start from. We don't need to have a baseline for this technology, but this is good to know where you're starting from so that you can see your improvement and you can see the impact of treatment. And this was what's PMF?
This was A9.
Oh yeah. So this is my micropulse technology we have on Flex Health. But generally speaking, look, I mean, you get this great improvement with the use of PEMF, which continues to be improved, and then they stop treatment, and you can see that discontinuing treatment in this case was not very good strategy.
Keep in mind, the guy had these conditions, this post-concussive symptoms for several years.
Yeah. So,
and then he started getting recovered, but he needed to keep doing it. So this gives
Right.
you an idea, how long do you keep doing the treatment?
see, this is like super important, right? I mean, it's like, say you break a leg and then your leg, it mends and you think it's okay. Well, how strong is it really? And if you stop, if you take it out of a cast, are you doing yourself any good by stopping treatments for anything? And it's good to know. I mean, if you're stable and you're good and you continue on and everything's great, then you don't need to continue treatment. On the other hand, if you start to slide back, you want to know that, right? And then you can continue treatment. You can modify your treatment if things are not going as quickly as you want. And you can periodically, every couple of months, you could try discontinuing treatment. And at some point you might stabilize.
Yeah, and this speaks to dosimetry. How much do you need?
So you've got this tool now, right, with Brain Gauge that can do all of this stuff. It can tell you really quickly, is there a problem? It can give you detailed tracking of every dimension cognitively of that problem. It can tell you, are you getting worse? Is your treatment working? Are you getting better? Hopefully. If you have recovered, do you stay recovered? Do you need additional treatment? So it's kind of like, this is like a one-stop cognitive health tool.
The brain training is usually used to complement treatments. In other words, most of the time we've seen, the treatments seem to be doing much better when people go and they do the brain training. And again, the physical parallel is that if you break your leg and get a cast, like Bob just mentioned, breaking something, yeah, you take the cast off and you still got to do some physical therapy. Brain's the same way. You get treatments for it, but you need to still improve that cognitivity and strengthen that stuff.
Yeah. So like if you break a leg, right, you've got more problems than just a broken bone. You've got, other muscle and other tissues are also affected. And you have to, have you regained your strength? Have you regained your balance? Not just is the bone fixed. And the great thing here, I think, with a brain gauge is it's looking at all aspects of cognitive function, not just did you recover this one thing, this one part of it that was injured. So it gives you like this full spectrum view of your cognitive health and the effectiveness of treatment, the effect of discontinuing treatment. Yeah,
and we actually have one case where
great.
The brain training by itself actually improves somebody. That's in the next slide.
Yeah, okay. You want to go to the next?
Yeah, let's go to the next
This
slide.
is really interesting.
And this was a nurse who has dyslexia. She was in her late 30s. Obviously, she had a little trouble because she kept getting blood pressure numbers reversed. She had trouble following directions and all the things that go with dyslexia. And she basically lost her job. Things were tough for her. And she bounced around from one neurologist to another, one clinician to another, until she started working with a guy who came to our last, one of our workshops, who learned about brain training. And, anyway, I basically tested her initially. You can see her initial scores.
Yeah, so that would be this box over here that I'm circling, right? This is where her cognitive function was. Pretty good focus, right?
Yeah, pretty good.
Everything else was
Everything else that needs
not
a lot of
good.
work.
Yeah.
And then she started doing the brain training and she started getting better. See, each of those little vertical tick marks up there, started doing brain training, started getting better. And then she started as like, oh, this is helping. And then she started doing brain training a lot. So you see each of those little vertical tick marks on the graph indicate when she trained. And if you look down here, well, okay, so her scores got better because she practiced, blah,
Yeah.
blah,
What
blah.
what does that
So
mean?
let's
Yeah.
look at her improvements. This is after a lifetime, 30+ years of having dyslexia. She's recalling words faster. When she reads, she notices less transpositioning of letters. Also, one thing we didn't talk about, which we talk about in all our other videos and stuff, brain gauge targets functional building blocks of brain function. So keep in mind, you can have, you build stuff out of building blocks, and you can have two houses look completely different, even though they're built out of the same thing. And you can build stuff, but if something's wrong with one of those building blocks, you can have many different things go wrong.
Yeah.
But if you target those building blocks, you can improve all kinds of things. So her balance has improved. She's got improved driving skills. She's starting to feel like I'm not sure what she's doing now, but she can give exact change. I didn't know anybody did want anything with that credit cards now.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
that's like using an abacus or something. Yeah, that's nice, but who has?
Anyway, she's got more confidence in talking, and she's more confident in conversations, and
Wow.
So anyway, once you work on the basics, it's just like, you go and you lift weights and you walk or run, you strengthen everything, you get better cardiovascular, you get better muscles.
Yeah.
You're going to be physically more confident. It's the same thing mentally. You'll
This
be
is
more confident.
This
with
is
what
so
you're doing.
great. This really is great because like I did my PhD in a muscle physiology lab in an Institute of Gerontology, study of aging. And the question always was like, sort of like, what one thing, what one drug do we have to get for old people so that they don't fall? And it's not that simple, right? You got to work on like Mark was talking about a few minutes ago, their basic building blocks. And what's amazing to me here is that, she's working on temporal order judgment, time perception, plasticity, fatigue, sort of cognitive, sort of like things in your head. And then like half of Mark's list here has to do with neuromotor improvements.
This, by the way, this also speaks to the specificity and accuracy of the standard measure. So if you look at that, because she had, from MRI, we know that she had a lifelong problem with her cerebellar function, which is our timing perception measure. Can you point to that?
Timing perception measure, right?
Like that.
Temporal order judgment.
No, timing perception is the next one.
Yeah.
That one's not getting better. She's slowly getting better at those functions, but she's still off scale. So this is the one that's really holding her back. Like her overall score has improved significantly, but that's the one that's sort of holding her back still. And that's because there's actual physical damage to that part of her brain.
Good God.
But she's getting better. And
well, that's amazing. I wonder how much, I've wondered this as you start to build these building blocks and you start to call on other parts of, other like local functions. I wonder, and I know this is impossible to test, but it's just a fancy idea. I'm wondering to what extent, if she has a physical injury to that part of her brain, if this kind of brain training actually helps vicariate.
it could. I mean, it depends on plasticity. It's sort of having a stroke,
exactly.
or what part of the brain goes, and you try to reroute and you take advantage of that early plasticity. But even when the early plasticity goes, you still have rewiring capability.
Yeah, totally right. It's just not as fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, this is just so interesting. Wow. Okay.
And we're going to try to keep it short, so we'll jump to the last slide.
Okie doke.
And just say, hey, we have. You can thank your if you're from the U.S., you can thank your tax dollars. That's why it's low priced.
Yeah, right.
Because they, basically paid for the development of this. And Office of Naval Research gets huge amount of credit for paying for the miniaturization, because one reason, okay, we won't go into it today. We've talked about this many times before. One reason for this is that we basically took $100,000 worth of lab equipment, crammed it inside something the size of a computer mouse. It's not a computer mouse.
But for the love of God, don't tell Mark it's a computer mouse, because it's not. It's a
It's-
laboratory instrument.
It's a lab.
It's shaped like a computer
It-
mouse because it fits your hand well.
And the one reason it works so well, it bypasses all the problems that your computer
Yeah.
has. Doesn't matter what kind of computer you have, it introduces problems, which is a
Right. So
topic for another talk.
this mouse, just let me say it, because I'm an instrumentation guy, is a lot faster and a lot more sensitive and accurate than anything you could do using your computer.
And it's
This is
why like, the
designed,
quick check alone
yeah,
has 91% accuracy.
which is astonishing. I mean, there's almost
some-
like nothing medical that's
Like in a head-to-head with other concussion measures. In a study we were in, we were with subs and others, nobody else cracked 60%.
Yep.
50% is flipping a coin. 90% is really good. So nobody gets 100%.
Yeah, nobody gets
But
100%.
That's pretty good.
That's a really, what Mark is saying, 91%. That's a really well vetted, very conservative 91%. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not BS. So this is great. And then the
We have a
question is,
one fee fits all, you know,
one fee fits all. Yeah.
and that covers everything.
Yeah. So you get like, super duper high tech science, thanks to the Office of Naval Research and their first mover funding that they paid for most of the original research on this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now it's very.
So you can either get the home unit or the pro unit. The pro, and you know,
So
basically.
here's the
you
home
get-
unit. You want to talk about the home unit first?
Well, you get the same results,
Yeah.
and let's say if you're a clinician and you get the pro, that's unlimited number of patients. And, you know, you can, basically you have unlimited testing, and it also supports remote testing to the brain gauge home.
Yeah, this is like for clinical purposes, if you want to do like telemedicine and have a lot of patients, with, you know,
So
spread
that,
all over the place, and you need a lot, you need a lot of support from our servers and everything
well,
else. And
basically,
it's like, yeah,
it's, if you have more than a couple of patients.
yeah. And whereas the brain gauge home is like, is it
Five,
5 people?
limit of 5 people.
Limit of 5 people, and it's, yeah, it's for a family, right?
Right.
And it's for, yeah, for use by a family, and should be fine there. No, you know, you, when you buy it, then you can do as much testing as you want,
As much
no
brain
fees,
training as you want.
much brain training as you want, quick check, you can be obsessive and check yourself every
Some
90
people
seconds.
Okay, so these measures follow the same time course of whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
So if you take a supplement and it's got a 3-day time course, don't test yourself every 5 minutes. But if you're taking shots of espresso, yeah, it'll track that if the espresso is having an effect. You take espresso on an empty stomach, and you know, after a couple of espressos, your scores will probably get a little better. And then after 8 espressos, they're going to be a lot worse.
so let me ask you this, if I get really irritated with somebody in like 1 second,
Should I leave?
it's gonna pick, no, I don't get irritated with you, man. I get irritated kind of with, I shouldn't say this. I get irritated with ignorant people. It
Oh.
takes me usually about a second. Is it gonna pick that up? Probably not that fast. Take at least
Well,
90 seconds.
If you're testing while they walk in the room.
Wow. Okay. Well, okay. So this is the, I think this is the value proposition here. $510. So we give you, if you're grumpy like us,
Yeah.
don't be all happy or anything like that. If you're grumpy like us, we'll give you 15% off to make
So-
you take
yeah.
the edge off your grumpiness. And so that's,
Alternatively,
yeah.
if you're really got plenty of money, you could do something like, say, get functional MRIs done at
yeah,
a couple $1,000 a pop. Oh, by the way, they don't work. They're not as high quality.
they don't work. You don't want to expose yourself
And they're not as high a
to-
resolution. And
to
you got to worry about
that
parking, you know.
and parking, and yeah, you're not going to be able to do it every day, and everyone in your family, or like, you know, in my case, you
And
know,
most people say this should be priced 5x more. 5 times more than it is.
Well, yeah, that's what I hear too. It's like the same thing. It's like, oh, you don't sell anything that does something like this for under like $2,500. That's exactly the number that I hear, which is, of course, we think that's BS, right? This is what we can make it and sell it for, and it's reasonable.
Yeah.
And good luck. I'll tell you what, good luck finding a good laboratory grade, clinical grade test
So
of
get one.
brain function for anything that's any amount. So this is, I think this is a great investment. And I think, gosh, no subscription, right? I mean, they're
No,
not,
no test
I mean, you
fees.
buy it and you own it. How often do they do that?
Yeah.
Right. So no, it's a really good deal. And what I think is really interesting is this is a testament to how much this person, if I can go back a slide, which I can because I have control of the mouse, right? She started doing some brain training, yeah, whatever, right? And it's working. Oh my God, look, a couple times a day, right? Blah, 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 blah. Because it's
Yeah,
working for
Because it
her.
was impacting her symptoms.
Yeah,
She
totally.
started doing the
She could
training more.
tell that it was helping her. And you can see during this stretch from this point to this point, she only did one intermediate test, but she could clearly tell it was helping her because there are these boom, 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 all really increase the frequency of her training because it's not onerous, it's easy to do, and you can feel the results. I'm sure of it. Looking at this list, anyone would be happy to have one of these things improve.
Yeah. Yep.
I would, man, this is, I think is really cool. It makes me a little less grumpy. Maybe that's a good thing to see something like this. Okay. So is there anything else you wanted to say, Mark? Anything else people need to know? Oh yeah. You can contact us. You can go and check out
Yeah.
what's
you go to
going
the
on at Circle
website.
Metric.
Yeah. You go to the website. Or actually, the best deal, the better than the grumpy discount deal is,
Don't tell them, man.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, we have workshops for the price of
Oh
the brain
yeah,
gauge.
gosh.
And you get a free brain gauge if you do the workshop, which means
Oh man.
you get a
Oh,
whole
that's
day
right.
long workshop where, you'll learn all the science behind this stuff. And we might even have a guest speaker talk about pulse electromagnetic field. I don't know who we'll get, but probably Bob.
Probably me, roped me into it again. Actually, Mark, I didn't know this. Seriously,
Yeah.
this is totally out of nowhere. You only charge the price of a brain gauge to be in, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, like you can spend,
So what we do, a
How
lot
long
of
is it? How long is it?
the clinicians are usually the ones that do the workshop. They do the workshop,
yeah,
then they get a brain gauge home,
yeah.
and then they hand the brain gauge home, or sometimes they rent it to their patients,
Oh,
sometimes
man.
they give it to them, sometimes they sell it. They can do whatever they want. But that brain gauge home is then tied into their account so that
Right.
when they test, people are basically look like they're sitting in the clinic.
Yeah, so the deal here is if you want to get a brain gauge and you have, how many hours is the workshop?
Anywhere from 3 to 8, depending on how
And
many
people can
questions
zoom
people
in,
ask.
they can
It's Zoom.
come in by Zoom, or if you happen to be local, I guess you can.
We've had people
Yeah,
fly in
fly.
from
Well, you've had, I
the
know,
West Coast.
you've had people fly in from Canada. I
In
know.
Canada, yeah.
Yeah. So I know at least of one. So, but I did not know that was the only thing yeah. And I think you even provide donuts to people.
Yeah,
who
if you
show-
come in, not, if you do
I'll
it
be there,
virtually,
man.
we do not feed
No
you.
donuts if you're staying
No
home and you're
lunch
zooming in.
if you're doing it virtually.
Right, but if you do show up, yeah, you get lunch too. Oh my
You get
God.
lunch if you show up,
So
not virtually.
so the deal here is, let me just sort of restate this. You could buy the thing and figure it out yourself, which is easy, or you could buy the thing, and if you're a hyper nerd and you really want to know how this thing works and be able to ask Mark questions about it and talk about it, you pay the same amount of money and you log on during the workshop and you can get more information about this than you want, because Mark will go as deep as you want to go on any of these topics.
Right. Right. And I prefer people doing the workshop than scheduling for 6 hours on the calendar.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I have a calendar, and generally we like to hold it to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We got 15, 30-minute, 60-minute sessions you can sign up for. That's also on the website. You can find, if you have questions about the brain gauge I don't know if I want to purchase, I don't get it. It's like, okay, just contact me. And
Mark will talk to you. He
So
will,
The
it's
grumpy
amazing.
discount will probably be 15% for a couple of weeks before we bump it back to 10%. But right now.
Right, depends
we're
on how
on sale.
grumpy, depends on how grumpy.
Depends on how
Mark is.
grumpy we are about it.
Mark makes it, he's the decider. He decides on the level of grumpiness that's reflected in pricing. So, okay, anything else?
Now let's go to lunch. Time for lunch.
Okay, so I will stop sharing. People can see us. We're both pretty grumpy and
Yep,
hungry, so we will
hungry.
talk to you later.
All right, bye.